You're listening to the Quint's podcast.
$590 players in the auction list, 217 spots up for grabs, 48 players at the rupees 2 crore base price, and once again a 10-team IPL, but this time for good. There's just so much to look forward to at the 2022 IPL auction that's taking place on the 12th and 13th of February. In our previous podcast, we've discussed the retentions made by the 8 old and the 2 new franchises, which has seen 33 players not even enter the auction pool. So this podcast is all about the 2 big days, a prediction for the big buys, the big guys that may go unsold, and the young guns that could make it big. You're tuned into The Big Story, the podcast where we dissect the headline-making news for you. And I'm your host, Mendra Dorjey Sahani, the Quint's sports editor. And today with me is Chandresh Narayanan, senior cricket writer. And to start things off, let's get to the marquee list. In the list of 590 players going under the hammer in the IPL auction, there is a marquee list of 10 players who will open the auction. Ashwin, Bolt, Cummins, De Kock, Dhawan, Duplessis, Shreyas Iyer, Rabada, Shami and Warner make up the 10. All have a base price of rupees 2 crores. But Chandresh, most of the guys are over 33 now on this list, and with teams also looking to build for the future, do you see a bit of a shock in store when they start the auction? Maybe 1 or 2 of these big names sort of go unsold and get sold maybe later on in the auction?
I think there could be a couple of players who go unsold in the first round, and you might see them being bid for in the later stages of the auction, because not all teams may want to exhaust their budgets in the very first round. They will have key players that they are looking for to be picked. Say someone like, say, a Jason Roy or a Shreyas Iyer, Kagiso Rabada. These are the kind of players that teams will want to invest in. The Australians, for example, their availability is going to be a bit of an issue. So teams may not go hammer and tongs for them in the first round and come back towards the end once they have covered all the other bases. So I think few other players will definitely go unsold when the marquee players go up for bidding.
Yes, and we also, of course, have a new entry in this list of 590 players going under the hammer. Jofra Archer was not part of the 1,214 players who registered for the auction, but he is in the final list at a base price of rupees 2 crore. He's not expected to play this season, so he could have stayed away from the auction, which is sort of why I'm bringing him up right now. We have a smaller auction, next year, of course, and we've seen that, in smaller auctions, there are not many big players who go under the hammer, so we've seen that they do tend to do better there. And why get into the auction this year when you're not going to play? Teams might not be as keen to pick you up. Archer's been slotted at number 171, so he's not even going to be part of the regular auction list. He'll be part of the accelerated auction that happens. I'll explain what that is actually a little later in this podcast. But Chandresh, what reason do you see for Jofra to put his name into the auction this year when he most probably is not even going to be playing this season?
Absolutely. It's quite curious as to why Jofra Archer has done that. I'm pretty certain he knows something that we don't. And that's why he's put himself up for auction. He's still not ready. Everybody knows that. He's not played any kind of cricket over the last 1 year. I don't know why he would want to put himself at risk. And considering the fact that England needs him a lot in the test match format, especially considering the kind of havoc that took place in Australia in the Ashes, I seem to think that either he pulls out or he might go unsold at the auction. I have a very strong feeling that he might just not be picked because teams are also going to be very smart about the kind of players they pick. Remember, Australia is going to be playing a lot of cricket. England's got a series towards the back end of the IPL. There's a Bangladesh South Africa Test series that goes on right till April 11th. So teams have to be mindful of all these factors. Plus, Jofra Archer's coming off an injury. He's still not fully fit. He's not played any cricket. So I don't know why he's put himself up for a bid.
Okay, I'm just going to also start, asking you for predictions now. A young uncapped player you think will earn big in this auction? We did have the Under-19 World Cup recently, so some fabulous performances to choose from. Also the fact, that this is the big auction. Teams are looking to add between, anywhere between 18 to 25 is the maximum number that you can add in a squad. So, they are also looking to build for the future. You can actually get some of these uncapped players at a bargain deal. So to say, and eventually they could become the core of your team, like we've seen with Delhi over the last few years.
I'll go with 3 if they are allowed to be picked, because I believe that there is some confusion about the under 19 players and whether they can be part of the auction or no, because some of them have not played any kind of first class cricket. That was a rule of the BCCI earlier. So I'm going with 3 guys that I think could really make a mark from the Indian point of view. One is obviously the India under-19 captain Yash Dul. The second is the vice captain Sheikh Rashid. And the third is a multi-purpose player, a dual-purpose player rather, Rajwardhan Hangargekar. I've spoken to a few teams who seem to be having quite a bit of time for him, because they see some kind of potential in him that they can develop and like sort of create like a seam bowling all-rounder out of him and use him in the longer run. In any case, this auction, more than any auction, is going to be about the Indian local players and the overseas players, because the team with the better core of Indian players always does well in the IPL. And I think now more than ever before, it's true, because internationally teams are trying to regain the lost ground that they have had over the last few years with the league. So it's going to be an interesting one, and some Indian uncapped players are going to be walking away with a lot of crores of rupees that could serve them for a very long time to come.
And your pick for the most expensive player at this auction?
I think the most expensive player from my point of view could be someone like a Shreyas Iyer, and say one of the younger Indian players who could surprise us at the auction.
Yes, and David Warner, Faf du Plessis, Steve Smith are sort of like IPL favourites. They've been around season after season, but they're also not the youngest players in the rupees 2 crore base price bracket, are they now? I mean, do you expect teams to go all out and, go big for them? Or will we see some of them become bargain deals like we actually saw with Steve Smith a couple of years back?
I think most of these guys, David Warner, probably if a team really wants him, if a team or two really wants him, they might go hammer and tongs and really break the bank for him. But I think that the others, like you mentioned, Faf du Plessis, Steve Smith, no, I don't see them really teams breaking the bank, so to speak, for them. I think that they might be bargain buys for the team, because they bring in experience, but they don't really probably add value to a T20 lineup in that sense. So I think that you have to give it to the teams. They'll be very smart, and they will be very calculative in the way they approach the whole thing.
Now, just to go through the process of this auction, it's of course happening across 2 days. We know that it starts at 12 p.m. on Saturday, and we have that marquee list of 10 players like we talked about before. Then after that, we have the second lot, that is of batters. That's 8 batters that will go under the hammer together, in the second lot. Then there's 10 all-rounders. Then there's wicket keepers, fast bowlers, and spinners. Now, after 160, that's when the auction moves into an accelerated auction, which basically means the teams will be asked to shortlist their, the players they'd sort of be interested in among the rest of the lot that's left, and all the players who went unsold so far on the first day. So that list is then collated by the IPL, and then that's the list that goes under the hammer on Sunday. So Chandresh, I mean, do you see actually all the big sales happening in the first few hours of Saturday, or do we see, teams sort of work around what happens on Saturday and then, maybe in that accelerated auction go for some big names?
I think you could see that. Also, what you could probably see is that towards the later part of the first day, if there are certain players that the teams have really saved themselves for, and if there's come some kind of a push and pull for that particular player, one odd player here and there, that usually happens. I think then you could probably see some action, but mostly the first couple of players should give you an indication of who the big buys are going to be for the teams on the auction day.
Just one question before I let you go. You were, of course, part of the Delhi Capitals back then. They were Delhi Daredevils franchise as their media manager many years back. So can you just tell us, are teams allowed to sort of talk to players before the auction, get a feel of how much the player would want to commit to the franchise, and depending on that, see how much they want to commit to, bidding on him at the auction? I mean, are conversations allowed?
They are allowed to do that. You can have conversations. You can have any kind of conversations with people, but you never know what happens on the auction table. So sometimes I'm a bit amused at stories that come out about Jason Holder going to Rajasthan Royal Challengers Bangalore. What if Rajasthan Royals bid for him? What happens then? What if Punjab decide to bid for him because he's captaincy material? What if Kolkata decide to bid for him because he's captaincy material? That doesn't stop the other teams from bidding for him. One team may want to bid for him, but that doesn't mean that the other teams don't want to bid for him. Whatever the conversation the player has with a particular franchise, it counts for nothing on that auction day, because it's a dynamic thing that happens on the go, and you can never predict what will happen on an auction day. And we've seen strange things happen on auction day in the IPL. So don't rule out something strange happening. One thing is for certain: there won't be a Chris Morris being bought for crores of rupees like in the previous auctions.
Okay, thank you so much for taking time out to speak to us today, Chandresh. That's a wrap for this episode. If you like listening to this episode, please subscribe to The Big Story for episodic updates. And as the state of Uttar Pradesh heads for a 7-phase election starting on 10th February, we also have a brand new podcast for you from Quint Hindi. Ye jo UP hai na, what factors and who will decide the fate of the state. Follow our election special podcast series on any of your preferred streaming platforms Monday to Friday.
Thanks for listening. Log on to the Quint's website and check out our other podcasts.